2020, beginning at 3 p.m. in the middle school library, 678 Success Drive, Marlin, Texas. The subject to be discussed or considered upon which any formal action may be taken or listed below. Items do not have to be taken in the same order as shown on this meeting notice. Unless removed from the consent agenda, all items identified within the consent agenda will be acted on at one time. Board Manager Terry.
Present.
Board Manager Vickers.
Here.
And Board Manager Johnson. All three members are present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Public comments.
Yes, there are two public comments. The first one, yes, I feel that teachers' aides do not get paid enough for the work they do. I know for myself, I have had an entire class for 2 months grading and doing work. This was last year, and I was a substitute last year. And the second comment is, I am an elementary teacher's aide, and I would like to know, would there be a possibility of getting a raise? The reason for my question is that my monthly paycheck is not enough to cover my bills, and it is just hard to make ends meet. Thank you.
All right. Time is 3:02. We're going into closed session. Approved to Texas Government Code Section 551.074. Approved to Texas Government Code Section Code 551.071 and Chapter 2254 of the Texas Government Code, private consultation with district attorneys regarding insurance property claims. Approved to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, deliberation of personal matters to include employees' grievances, employees' file audit, and consideration of employees' contract for alternative certified teachers. All right, let's close. We're back to open session at 6:22. Superintendent report.
Board President, Mr. Johnson, Board of Managers. In today's superintendent report, we have a comprehensive outlook on events that have taken place from July to August 2020. We'll begin with the Coronavirus Relief Fund reimbursement from Mr. Lawrence Galloway, Chief Academic Officer.
Good evening, Board President, Dr. Henson, board members. Today I'm going to talk to you about the Corona Relief Fund reimbursement. In the spring of 2020, when the pandemic started, you all were informed that, or you all decided to do an emergency purchase of 2 Chromebooks to make sure that students had access to devices. And these 2 purchases are reflected here in purchase 1 and purchase 2. One in the amount of $24,000 and more, and the second was an amount of $84,000 to make sure that we had instructional continuity for our students. Also during that time, you were informed that we would get reimbursed at some capacity for those devices. Here are the funds that's provided to us by the Texas Department of Emergency Management. Any of those purchases, which our purchases does fall between March 1st and May 20th, are eligible for reimbursement up to 75%. Here's a total of the two purchases at $109,000. The reimbursement that we were allotted from the Texas Department of Emergency Management was $68,005. At a total of, we would get $40,000 worth of devices and hotspots, things of that nature. But for $40,000, when we actually originally paid $109,000, so the $68,500 will go back into our fund balance from that purchase from this spring.
I did think that we spent more than that.
True. This part from the Texas Department of Emergency Management only gave us up to 75%.
Right, but I thought we spent more than $109,000. I thought we allocated something like
250 or something.
200, 250.
Okay, I will do some more research to get back to that 250 to see do they qualify in the grant for us to be able to reimburse.
Adam, do you remember? Or can you shed any light on that?
Yes, I will be going over a portion that will cover some of the other expenses that we made, like the hotspots. So this would help.
Oh, I
us-
see. So this is
help
only
us with the
Chromebooks.
Chromebooks.
Okay.
We have another portion coming later for the
The
hotspots. so I'll
hotspots.
get into
Okay. And how many Chromebooks did we buy? I can't see
it.
there.
That was 384.
384
Yes.
for that price. Okay.
And then he'll go over a couple of the other purchases that came through the other portion of the connectivity.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The next portion, as we talk about the takeoff plan, this portion that we focus on is career and technical education and funding and the realignment that we did this school year. Because of House Bill 3, we are allowed to offer CTE courses for high school credit starting in 7th grade. So taking a step back, if we look at the 1920 school year, and here you will see they have two columns. One is the actual, what was reported at the year end of June 30th, and then one is going to be the corrected column. So the difference between the two is we have 176 students in both columns, 7 faculty and staff. We have the allotment from the Texas Education Agency they give us to support our CTE program. However, there was a discrepancy between the two, or our accounting, with how much we captured in our what's called a PIC 22 for our CTE funding between the $352,000 and the $411,000. What that means is, or the difference comes in, we did not capture 100% of a teacher's salary. So that inaccuracy is reflected in the 352, but the correction is reflected in the 411. So at the end of June 30th, 2020, what we would have reported is a total of $381,000 in expenditures, when in actuality, if we would have captured it accurately, we would have captured $439,000 in expenditures. As you can see, the difference between the two. In this case, going back, CTE was not supporting itself with the funding that we were receiving from the state. Going forward, after we've done some realignment, scheduling with staffing, and as we review other materials, this year we are projected to have approximately 356 students between the 7th and 12th grade that are eligible to take CTE, 6 staff members, and approximately 85 to 90% of those students will be enrolled in a CTE course, which will produce approximately $406,000. That's a projected increase of $46,000 because of that realignment that we did with CTE, and now being able to offer those students 7th and 8th grade the opportunity. Expenditures are pretty roughly the same. We actually did a net savings this time with the realignment of $35,000, and we have additional income because of that program of $2,500. So now that program, CTE, the pathway, is able to financially support itself with some additional revenue. Any questions?
What is program intent allotment?
So program intent allotment, there are several of them. One of them is, well, now they're new ones, called CCMR, College Career and Military Readiness.
Okay.
An older one that you may know, Gifted and Talented, Special Ed, CTE. So from our what's called foundational school programming or allotment, we have what they call PIC codes, 11, 22, 23, and we are required by the state to spend a certain amount of funds from our allotment on these different programs.
I see.
So from that, CTE is going to hopefully projected to generate $406,000 in our allotment that we have to spend on CTE. And the idea is to stay within that constraint. If you can, your program should be able to support itself. So this year will probably be the first year that we're able to do that in Marlin ISD financially.
We have the teachers and staff.
Yes, sir. We have the teachers and staff to support this program, and we're hoping to actually expand it going forward.
And you said there's 356 kids that are eligible.
They're eligible, 6, 7,
Not signed up.
Not signed up, because I may want band, I may want dance, I may want this, but we have about 356 students that are eligible, and this number would actually be higher, our allotment, if it was 100%. But however, due to scheduling choices, scheduling picks that we decide to do, about 85 to 90% of students will be in CTE, and that number's reflected.
They'll be enrolled.
Will be enrolled, yes, sir. And they'll be earning high school credit in the middle school.
And that's, I assume that's way different than years past.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This will be the first year that we're offering CTE courses in the middle school that are high school credit.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions?
Next, we'll have Dr. Stacy Parker, Executive Director of Student Services, speak on our new curriculum in the Marlin Virtual Academy.
Hey, good evening, Board President Johnson, Board Managers, Dr. Henson. So this year for 2020-2021, we have a new curriculum design here at Marlin ISD. Our design is going to help us ensure quality instructional planning, access to the resources that we've procured, and teacher support around best practices. This design follows a research-based model approach that allows teachers to plan with the end in mind. This means that we will be in a better position to support both our district and board goals for this academic term and our students' academic success. This new design also meets TEA's requirements for a detailed plan of instruction as they outline for students during the time of remote instruction periods for COVID-19 closures or virtual opt-in. Our new design began with outlining a scope and sequence for all of our content areas. The scope and sequence provides this year at a glance view for teachers, administrators, parents, and other stakeholders. The document highlights the main idea of each unit, also important learning concepts, and standards of learning. So it's just an overview of the year at a glance. From the scope and sequence, we create a unit guide. This provides teachers with more of a detailed view of the standard objectives, what students should be able to do as a result of learning. It links to daily lessons and assessments for progress monitoring. So the unit guide is interactive. You can see the blue hyperlinks. That hyperlink direct links to the district adopted resources for easy access for the content area. To support closing gaps due to COVID-19 closures, each unit guide also provides access to prior grade level standards and resources so that teachers have the ability to look behind and also ahead to support any gaps or also to accelerate students. To also ensure support of all students, the unit guide now provides instructional support resources. This section places an emphasis on focusing on literacy across the content areas. So we're really promoting literacy in all content, enrichment opportunities for students that may be advanced in some areas, but also intervention support. It also has space for special education support and resources, multilingual resources for our ESL students, and then technology integration for increased engagement. This guide also supports growing our teachers while providing an aligned curriculum to promote academic growth. So we also provide supports for teachers in the terms of additional resources and videos on how they can better teach a particular area. In addition to our new curriculum format, we also have our Marlin Virtual Academy. This is based on TA's guidance, which requires districts to provide quality instruction to those students that opt out of returning to face-to-face learning. Marlin, we began school today, August the 17th, remotely, with all of our students receiving the first 2 weeks of instruction at home. returning to our campuses on Monday, August 31st. Families must take a commitment survey, and that is for our families that choose to continue at home remotely. And that code shows up when you go to our website. They will be able to see that option to click there if they want to choose that option. If parents continue to opt in to receive virtual learning, then they are committing to supporting students with time management, with assignment submission, and daily participation. Parents also are committing to partnering with the teacher to maintain an open line of communication for support and understanding the new guidelines. Also, we're asking that when our parents opt in, that they remain in this option for a full grading cycle. So no opt in and regularly opt out, so that we can ensure the continuity of instruction for our students. And then here, I just show you where on our district website, under our COVID-19 update section, there is the 2020 school reentry plan, and we've added links to highlight the Marlin Virtual Academy requirements, our role, their role, and then the commitment form, another way to access that. Also, to support success of students, what Marlin ISD teachers and staff commit to is to also provide support to these families by constantly communicating a schedule of availability to help students with time management, assignment submission, and daily participation. We're also providing Chromebooks to those families in need in grades 3 through 12. And then we're going to provide the same quality of instruction excuse me, as students receiving face-to-face instruction. So what they get in the Google Classroom will mirror what's happening in the classroom with the face-to-face students.
How many 3 through 12 students actually get Chromebooks from us?
When I checked today, we have distributed quite a bit. I think Adam had specific numbers, but we allotted like 179 per campus for the Chromebooks for 3 through 12.
There's approximately 650 that have gone out, or that will go out in total.
Through the district?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So almost every student in K through 12.
Yes.
Would I be correct in assuming that?
3 through 12.
3 through 12,
Yes,
excuse me, I'm
yes.
sorry, yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir?
You said 600 or something?
650.
Yes, sir. And we just want to stress that the Marlin Virtual Academy is not a separate campus. What we mean by having this academy is just to highlight that we will provide the same quality of instruction. So the grading rubrics, the level of work will be the same. They walk lockstep with those, with their face-to-face peers. So the schedule that they receive is the same as if they were face-to-face. So if they opt back in after the grading period, they would just fall right into those same classes with their classmates. And so then with that being said, the requirements of the state grading is the same, it's weighted the same for GPA, attendance is taken regularly, and so they would be counted absent. Any additional questions?
So if they opt back in, it will be at the end of the 6 weeks.
Yes, we're asking. Now, in the beginning, because we are doing a remote start and we know our face-to-face and we have multiple districts in the region that have various start times, we are giving them a little bit of leeway. We extended the date to opt in and opt out to tomorrow, but we will take it case by case. And we just, as information disseminates, we know that that's going to help shape some decisions of our parents. So yes, but once we move forward, we are asking that they utilize the grading periods to opt in and opt out. Thank you.
This may seem like a simple question, but does every teacher have a certain percentage of his or her students that are in that virtual academy versus the ones that are attending in person?
Right now, the survey being over, I checked today, we're sitting at district-wide, about 55% that have opted to stay home, but that's 55% of a third of our students. So we have approximately a little over 700 students anticipating to register, and 267 of those took the survey.
Okay, all right. And so, but those children who are doing the at-home version, they're being supervised by,
Their classroom teacher.
they have a classroom teacher just like everybody else.
Absolutely. They have the same schedule, same roster. As a matter of fact, today on each of our campuses, even though we were virtual, they did attendance, they called the families, did roll, and all of our students have student emails. We reminded them of their emails that they had from last year, like you'll be using them this year. We've issued new emails, assigned new emails to our students, so when they get the Chromebook, as they sign in and they go to their Google Classroom, all of the classes are popped up. So I was actually at the elementary this morning modeling for some of our parents, and so the teachers are interacting through the Google Classroom, typing of messages, but they're also calling, and we'll plan some face-to-face time over the Google Hangout as necessary.
So would it be fair then to assume that the typical teacher at elementary school has 14 kids in their classroom and 7 that are doing virtual academy? Something like that?
It could, as I glanced at numbers, there probably are scattered more of the kinder, and sporadically first and second grade, some of the younger ones. I talked to a parent today, daughter has sickle cell, so it may be sporadic. We're gonna go through when it closed tomorrow to give teachers the accurate number of how many are staying home so that they're prepared. The plan is that they prepare out their virtual classroom, but it's not a different plan as they would standing up. So they go ahead and just lesson plan in the virtual classroom so that with the kids in front of me, everything is exactly the same. I basically could teach them off of that plan as well. And so, but I definitely will be able to give you all accurate numbers.
I was just curious. I just assumed that more younger kids would physically come to the school, and the older kids would tend to be the ones that opted out as they get into high school and so on.
And so far, the trend that I'm seeing as parents of college really are parents of kids that have some type of asthma, sickle cell. Most of the parents that were in the school today were like, when the doors open, we want our kids in with our social distancing measures in place. So that's what I'm seeing as I talk to parents, but we'll get a bigger gauge on it when the survey closes so we can really look deeper.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we have the interlocal agreement and the operation connectivity by Adam Laloon, Director of Technology.
Good evening. Board President Johnson, Mr. Vickers, Ms. Terry. I have some information for you about a TEA matching grant opportunity that we took part in recently. The general program is called Operation Connectivity. Contained within Operation Connectivity are different sections. The one that I'm focusing on is a bulk purchase program that was initiated by Dallas and the TEA, and Houston is administrating the program. This is where TEA and Region 4 got together to work with vendors to pre-negotiate a very nice discounted rate on devices such as Chromebooks, hotspots, and offer the learning local education agencies the opportunity to take part in those discounts through a bulk buy. And at the same time, they are reimbursing 50% of your purchase through those programs. So in addition, they plan on reimbursing other expenses related to COVID connectivity that go back to May 21st, which is where that other portion that I was discussing earlier comes in. Since we were invoiced after May 21st for those hotspots, that portion is covered by this proposed 50% reimbursement there. Also, Edgar competitive bid waivers were acquired by TEA, so there were no federal purchasing restrictions or competitive bid problems with this purchase. During the week of July 20th, the TEA opened up this program, and we had a very, very short window to respond to a survey. We actually had about 6 days. We elected to enter into the agreement with Region 4 to purchase 126 additional Chromebook devices and 100 hotspots of the same type that we have now to fill in those gaps of connectivity. Total cost for all of these items is $23,931, and the funds are coming from CARES Act money, so that's how we'll pay for them. So if you include
23,000 with the 50%?
yes, sir.
Okay.
So if you include the CRF money that we discussed earlier and this current offer, you know, I apologize. Let me go back because the 50% reimbursement for connectivity is only for 1 year. So I have to say
For 1 year?
yes, sir.
Okay.
I apologize for that. But with the CRF and the Operation Connectivity programs that we're already participating in, we have received approximately $197,000 worth of devices and hotspots for only $64,400, which is a 68% reduction in cost. And these are all being used by our students. As well, the TEA is monitoring federal grants, and I have heard about another wave of bulk purchasing. So we will take a look at where we stand at that point when those get announced, and then examine further whether we need to continue acquiring these products. Are there any questions?
You want to tell us what's going to cost next year?
Wish I could. Hopefully not as much, since we were able to take advantage of these programs.
Another program.
Yes, sir. So I showed you all last month of the initial design for the learning spaces, the furniture purchase that we are looking at making. And I have what we are considering our final update on that in terms of the layouts. The design team went through and did a render with us using our colors and using the software, the furniture that we picked. And so I wanted to run through those with you. This room is this lab that's right here by this library. And it features one of our pod designs that I talked about before, where you have a learning display on the wall and then cafe style seating with some more seating in the back. There's also, you can see the whiteboards and more sort of loungy spaces in here as well. This is considered more of a meeting room or a sort of hangout sticky room that the students can engage in real work experience. This room is on the other end of the school here. This is the design brief for this room is that it still needed to stay somewhat like a computer lab. And so that's why we have these 6 top tables. There's plenty of space for kids here to work with their Chromebooks, and still they can communicate with each other and collaborate with each other while also making it more of a typical workspace that you would see in a computer lab. I decided to include this isometric view here to give you some perspective of the scale, because it's a little hard to see on that picture, but there is still plenty of room to move around inside that room. This is probably my favorite new space. This is the one that took the longest to reconfigure. This is actually this room that we're in right now, the boardroom / middle school's hangout space, learning space, group gathering space. So you can see that the room is actually kind of opposite the way that we have it now. These tables that y'all are in would be back here, and they'd be high tops and higher chairs with plenty of seating for people along this wall right here. So those are a really good size for students or adults. And we have decided to include a lot of these tables that whenever they're not needed for anything, they'll actually flip up and then they can nest out of the way. And then we have, which you should remember from the last presentation, the same sort of circular gathering areas that we saw in the elementary. But then we also have a larger sort of conference table to face this area. And then these yellow things in the back are sort of the stadium, climbable stadium seating that we first saw in the elementary library. So now when this room looked so amazing and incredible, it doesn't look as nice. I still think this is probably our second or third best room in this whole design, but we decided to take the best elements from this and move them over here with just the added brief of making sure that we could still have board meetings. So this is actually, instead of chairs, designed with stools, and the stools are interactive for the kids. They rock and they move. And then we can actually have other little stool areas dotted around so we can have a story time. We are looking at something like a stage for the middle instead of a third seating set, so that if we have a guest or we have someone who would like to read to the students, they could go and present in front like they're delivering a great speech or whatever.
This is at the library at elementary school.
Yes, library element. This is we're calling it the Mural Nook, which is a space from the high school library. And it is set up very much just like a normal tables and chairs. It's just meant to update the look over there and make it more pleasant to be in that area. And then this is what we are calling the Super Lab, or the vocational lab, where we have plenty of room in that building, and we decided to go with something very different from what we had, which right now we have just rows of tables and rows of chairs. This instead, showing you the overhead view, is more of a college room style seating. So these are high tops in the back and then lower tables in the front that sort of slope down to a teacher position in the front. But then we also have all this sort of cafe style seating to give students a lot of opportunities to work together, communicate with each other. And then of course we have our whiteboards peppered around the area, and a space for lounging area, and then also a space for a teacher if they need to do a larger sort of presentation. There is room for 50 in here. So 50 seats can fit in this room, and you can see it's still plenty open and spacious to walk around in. And then finally, the rotunda area that we call it in the library. This was the area that was separated by a partition that was running right through the middle, and this was all storage space. It has now since been cleaned out, and I want to commend the maintenance guys for doing a really good job cleaning all that out. There was a lot in there, and there's still a little bit that needs to be removed, but it looks very nice. Here we have the pod concept from this room, but we have it much bigger. So we have a pod here and a pod here. There's room for a pod here, but we decided instead to sort of space it out a little bit more to make it have more room to move around and to have more of this sort of lounge style seating. We have some bench seating on the side. We have the tall conference tables in the back. This room is a little bit reconfigurable in that these tables can move out if we need more space in here to bring in stools or have more bodies for gathering in this area. But this is probably, and then I'll show you the render. This is an extremely dynamic room. It looks really good to me. We also have in this room a server cabinet, so we decided to put some acoustic paneling there to sort of block the noise and block the view of that cabinet. And then this would actually scooch over just a little bit there. But there's so many good rooms in this whole plan, but this again is one of my favorite rooms. So the estimated cost for this project that we just received our quote is approximately $415,000, 450,000. But our thoughts on this is that this is all money that's being spent on students, and they have we've heard a lot of comments about the way the painting went in the hallway. They are loving seeing their school refreshed. They're invited to come back. We really want to show our students that just like anybody in Fort Worth or Cedar Hill or Dallas or Houston, they also deserve to have these kinds of rooms where they feel like they are getting real world experience, doing real world work, treated as adults and allowed to work together and collaborate and communicate while doing this type of work. So we do feel that it's worth it. It is all for the students, and that's our presentation. Are there any other questions?
How long will all of that last?
This is all high-end commercial grade furniture. 5 to 10 years is not unexpected, perhaps longer with care.
And the funds are scheduled, if approved by you all, we have to come back and put us on the consent agenda one more meeting. It will come out of the fund balance, which we do have more than excess funds in the fund balance to cover the additional cost of this. We also want to recommend, speak about that. 6 of our 7 goals are academics based. And so we want to make sure that though we understand that the cost is probably jumping at first, we do believe that the learning spaces would ultimately, in collaboration with great instruction, help us achieve our goal goals.
What about, are you only replacing furniture? Are you going to redo carpet or anything else at the same time?
We have talked about that. I'm not sure exactly how far we're going to go. We've talked about lighting, painting, carpets probably do need to be touched up at least, I would say. But
And now that we in-house, we handle
Yes.
just our current annual budget.
Will always do.
So various teacher classrooms for classroom libraries, moving them to other campuses. I know the high school has some spaces. So all this is going to be utilized in making sure, because this furniture is still in great condition. It's only 15 to 20 years old. And so the idea right now is to create just those learning, reading nook pods in individual classrooms.
What do we do with all the books?
So the books that are already in the classrooms to do classroom libraries. We were thinking about COVID-19, trying to minimize a lot of movement around. And so we understand that it's still important for kids to have print-rich material that they can touch on. So the idea was to put it in the actual classrooms.
And who's the company behind this? Was it Staples or did you
we
say that?
decided to use the Sourcewell national contract in order to have Staples provide our product.
Okay.
They have a design center that's in Austin. They've been working pretty closely with me. We've been going back and forth. I'm really impressed with their designs.
And they come in and install and put it all together and all that?
That price includes everything, top to bottom.
Okay.
The high school white walls, a breath of fresh air. Whoa. I didn't think I was in Marlin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wanted to give an update and a reminder on board policy AE local, our board constraints. Annually, we do have to go over our AE local. The superintendent should not hire an alternative certified teacher without specifying on the consent agenda the exact grade level and that the teacher shall be assigned to, and you have that today on your consent agenda. As well as the board should not allow the board to make modifications except for more than once a year, collectively, or any trustee individually to perform or appear to perform any of the roles delegated to the superintendent, collectively, or any trustee individual to violate board policy AE local. That is just a reminder and an update on board policy AE local. Any questions? First reading of TASB policy update 115. I'm going to have Mrs. Strickland pass out to you the first reading of the update.
Thank you.
people.
What you're receiving is the Vantage Points, which of course is our executive summary prepared for the board. And this update, I can highlight it for you, update 115 is going to focus on board policies, FFE, that entire series which relates to student welfare, counseling, and mental health. And then of course, there's several other policy updates as it relates to Title IX, sexual harassment, throughout all of these policies. And so the legal policies will automatically be updated here in Marlin ISD as well. Are there any questions on that? From mental health, social services, counseling, and then Title IX, sexual harassment. And then every time that we do get an update, we have to present it to the board members as well. Employee recognition for the 2019-2020 school year, the Safety Employee of the Year was Robert Kunkel. I can't speak highly enough about Robert and just all that he does for this district, his attitude, his spirit, his smile. He's just, he's kind and funny. And so we have provided Robert with a certificate that he will receive tomorrow. I know it's late in the evening, but Robert was the employee of the year. We're now going to move on to our consent agenda items. Mr. Lawrence Galloway with our TEAS certification.
Good evening again, Board President Johnson, board members, Dr. Henson. Today, I'm going to present to you a document that goes along with our TEAS certification for the educational resources for technology, instructional material and technology items that we have purchased or we will be purchasing in this school year in the event that there is a need. Previously, I came to you all about IMA. We get a biennial allotment from the TEA that allows us to buy things like textbooks, other instructional resources. This year, we're going to be using Achieve 3000, for example, for some of our support for our students. What this is saying is the board recognizes, and Dr. Henson, the superintendent, also recognizing, are able to prove that the items that we are purchasing are TEAS aligned to the Texas standards for what TEA has outlined. That at any given time, that if we are able, if we're given an audit of some sort, we're able to prove through Pearson, through any of our instructional resources, technology resources, that they are TEAS aligned, that we'll make sure that we are instructing our students with the proper materials. So this is a document that has to be signed off by the board president and secretary and Dr. Henson. Next, we're going to the financial report. As we go through the financial report today, this is the first month into the 2021 school year. What you will notice from the financial report, in the second column, we had $1 million of revenue that came in. If you go all the way down to the bottom of that same column, you also see that we had approximately $600,000 in expenditures. Part of that, of course, was that you're starting off the school year when it comes to starting individuals off with supplies, mostly salaries, of course. If you notice at the bottom of that, again, we have approximately $400,000 that will increase our fund balance because of only our $600,000 in expenditures for the first month. So as we begin to ramp up, get bodies back into the building, teachers teaching, everybody working, kids in the building, you will see an increase in salaries as teachers will traditionally get their first paycheck in the month of September. So those numbers will change. Based on my projection, if that first column is what we have budgeted, we are right on target for traditional expenses that we would expend in the month of July, and I'm hoping that we continue that way. That's my projection, and that's my constraint to make sure that we stay within the budget that has been outlined since July 1. So we're off to a great start on that first page. Does anybody have any questions before we go further to the next page?
What do we have debt service on?
So debt service is, we technically don't have any debt service, but we do debt service maintenance that we're paying for. Okay. So the way it falls, sometimes it may cross fiscal years. So in this case, we have something from last year that crossed fiscal years that we had to account for in July. Okay. And another item that I would like to point out in function 93, where we talk with the little large, that's part of our co-op. that we pay up most of that in the first semester. So that's why that amount is much larger. You won't see another payment until approximately in January.
And so, back to the debt service,
Yes, sir.
the $5,000 actual is just a carryover,
Yes, sir.
but you have $170,000 in the budget for that.
So we'll go further to a budget amendment. Dr. Henson and I sat down and we reviewed some accounts that we've had historically over 2 years that were not being expended, that had a budget but had no expenditures. That is one of the accounts that we sat down and reviewed, and we're going to kind of talk about it today in the next presentation when it comes to the budget amendment.
Okay.
If you flip over to the back side, it talks about food service, which is right in line for July. We didn't serve any lunches or anything during the time period, so of course that will be low. But just to give you some reprieve, we are serving lunches even during virtual academy, during the MBA for our students. So they will be getting breakfast and they will be getting hot lunches, even if they are part of the virtual academy. We have pickup times designated and we've communicated that information to the parents and to the community. So very similar to when we went out on COVID, they still receive lunch, breakfast, and they will also get like a snack for the next day. We're still continuing those same services to make sure students are receiving some type of nutritional meal, breakfast and lunch and dinner or snack. The last page is about our investments. Our investments are in alignment with regulation and policy. I was spoken to by our investment company. They would like an opportunity in the future to potentially present something to us to where they feel like we can earn a better return on our funds by doing something a little more creative, and that's within policy that we could do. That way we get a better return.
So what's the fund balance right now?
The current fund balance is sitting at approximately, if we add in, we have not done the transaction that I spoke about earlier with the $69,000 that's coming back to us from that July transaction, and then not accounting for our Adams transaction with the connectivity, we're sitting at approximately $5 million.
Okay. And optimal fund balance for our size?
So I'm glad you brought that up. Last December, Dr. Henson and I, well, we received a letter from Region 12 that in December of last year, they informed the district that actually our fund balance is too high. And we need to actually spend some money because there is a window. They want you to have about 3 months to 6 months of operating budget to make sure that you're able to pay bills in case the window between when the state is paying you and the federal dollars are rolling in. But of course, you want to have enough cash on hand. So we've exceeded that threshold, and it's been expressed that we need to spend that dollar amount.
How do you get that we've exceeded it? If you say 3 to 6 months, 6 months times $1 million a month is $6 million.
So we're going into a new fiscal year. Going into the new fiscal year with new grants. What's going to throw this year off? I want to say off, but what's going to be different about this fiscal year is a lot of reimbursements that we will have when it comes to COVID. That's going to throw it even more so over because that $60,000 goes back. Another $70,000, $80,000 go back into the fund balance. It will continue to take that $5 million or so and increase it, and we would definitely be above a significant threshold that we have money that we need to spend. At some point, I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it, there are a couple of districts around the state that you kind of get a slap on the back of the wrist if you have too much money and you aren't spending it on instruction, aren't spending it on academics. So potentially in your audit, you could get a deal for it.
See. So we can afford Adams furniture?
We can afford the furniture, not Adams. So yes, we can comfortably afford Adams furniture. And I think it would be a very great investment. It'd be a long-term investment for our students. And because it's an academic investment with the instructional opportunities that they will have, it's definitely well worth it to tap into that opportunity while we have it.
And it's just fun to see Adam that excited.
Okay.
So then, of course, the next thing is the exciting check registry. I think it starts in your booklet on page 124. If I'm not mistaken, there is a screenshot on that page. It's just a review of all the checks that have been issued in the month of July, which are in alignment with the financial report that you also saw. One thing I would like to say and point out is a project that we're working on right now in the business finance office. with the new Texas, but with Texas being upgraded, we will eventually be able to offer ACH payments to our vendors instead of sending frank checks going forward. And that's an opportunity I think would attract vendors even more so to want to do business with Marlin ISD. Any questions about the checks? And then the next page, the next one is about the budget amendment, which starts on page 131 in your book. So going back to your original question, Mr. Vickers, Dr. Hinton and I looked at 2 years of history of accounts that were budgeted, but they had no expenditures. We came up with approximately about $60,000 worth of budget that was out there that was not being utilized for the benefit of our students or the benefit of our staff. So we decided to reallocate that money. I would like the opportunity to reallocate that money. Some of that money the money is denoted here, either a budget item or function is increasing or decreasing. Significantly, we are increasing instruction for our students. Part of that will go to the Takeoff project with some of this space, some of the instructional displays that we have. That would be a part of that development. Other things that are being decreased, just to highlight for you, were resources that were not used. We're pulling from supply accounts from things that were not used historically for 2 years. For example, in 12, which is traditionally libraries and media, being that this space is changing, we felt it was appropriate to reallocate those funds somewhere else, being that we are having a different plan for this space. One other increase that's very significant was part of school administration and leadership. That is to help drive our principals to working with school improvement, campus improvement plans, working with the district improvement plan, also offering the professional development on overall school turnaround. The final one is about the budget increase, was also part of the Takeoff plan. It's called, we put it under plant maintenance, but that would be the new marquee. That would be any of the painting that we've done inside of the building, cleaning up some of the TVs that are in the front, things like that that fall under maintenance and under Vince's team.
What new marquee?
Or we replace order new marquees because the ones that we have, they're kind of in bad shape.
And tell me what that is. I'm just
Like that marquee where they put the letters. They say welcome.
Oh, you're talking about the little signs.
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, all right, I get what you're saying. So we replaced the whole thing or the panel or what?
So we're keeping the base. It's just gonna be clean it up, get them repainted, put the new plexiglass Marlin Middle School in the front, and just I'll get all the new letters.
I see, okay.
We want it to be big and bright off Highway 6.
Is that just for the school?
Just for the elementary and middle. And I don't know if you noticed, but right there on 7, across from McDonald's, they actually painted the high school marquee sign.
Okay, I didn't notice. Sorry.
The C.C. Jones sign, Danny.
Yeah, I remember which one.
So
Neil
that
like
was for the paint, but the high school one,
Whatever.
it's kind of tall, so that was a little expensive. These were clearly a lot less expensive because they're smaller.
Are there any other questions, concerns?
School supplies.
Yes, sir.
The district purchased
Yes,
school
sir.
supplies for every student.
Yes,
is
sir.
what I understand. So then, I mean, how much did that cost?
That total purchase was right at $32,000. That came out of a federal grant.
Okay.
And the idea behind that was to make sure that the students, well, we got creative. We sent some supplies home with students that picked up backpacks and Chromebooks today. And then also, especially in the lower grades, we have classroom sets, but we're going to create individual items for students just to make sure that they're not sharing, that we don't spread COVID. But they also have supplies that will stay at home, but we have supplies that are also hidden within that purchase. But each student, nobody should have to purchase supplies for this coming school year. We have everything that they need.
So $9 a student?
When I did the number for
than
every single student in the district, we spent
more than
about $38 a student for
$38.
all their supplies.
I see.
And that's pretty good for approximately almost 800 kids. I don't think you can do better at a training cell
No.
at
We go to-
Staples.
Flat stationers or somewhere and get those, or what'd you do?
Say it one more time.
Where did we get those to?
Staples. Staples was able to take
From
out
the
school.
state.
Say it again.
You said from the state?
Staples.
Staples.
So Staples was able to take our actual school supply list. I just sent it to them and they automatically, they gave us a quote, and they were able to ship the items directly to the campuses and put them directly in our students' hands and our families.
Good.
And they've been very happy to pick up a backpack with a Chromebook and school supplies in it.
Did you get any what would you call it, resistance from Walmart or?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I wondered if that.
But I think it was the customer service, and then it was the how quickly Staples was able to
Uh-huh.
turn it around.
And so we do understand that Walmart did have concerns. And we gave them the opportunity to also present a bid. I never received a bid from Walmart,
Okay.
from a local Walmart.
Would that be something that would that exceed a threshold that requires a bid? Or competitive bid?
No, but I still wanted to look.
Well,
into it.
yeah, I understand that, but I'm just saying, because it was 32,000, does that, it's 25,000, so?
Yes, but because it was grant funded.
Grant, okay.
And because it's through the source rail and they've already been vetted, we're able to use Staples.
Yes.
That's how easy we were able to contract with them to get those supplies
Okay.
to us.
So they were on the vendor list or whatever?
Yes, sir.
I see. Mhm. Okay, just curious.
Board policy amendment, GBAA local, item adjourned.
Board President Johnson, members of the board, hello again. I'm going to talk to you very briefly about board policy GBAA local, which is a policy that relates to public information requests. We are currently only able to charge for time spent preparing for public information requests if that time exceeds 15 hours of time during a 1 month period, here number 2, or 36 hours of time during the entire fiscal year for the cumulative time spent by personnel. This is an issue because we are not in the days of searching through filing cabinets and pulling files anymore that any clerk or anything could do. These data reports are skilled work preparing and pulling them. 36 hours of time during a year is a lot of time for a skilled person to be pulling those reports. And our proposal is that we just refer back to the Attorney General's cost calculator, which says that after 40 printed pages, and that includes exports from a computer system, you can start charging based on their calculation. That would remove the 15-hour limit and the 36-hour limit, and it would allow us to not as a punishment or not to recoup costs really, but that's time that a person who is a skilled computer user would have to take to prepare that. That would allow us to recoup some of that time.
So what would that be? How much would that be?
There is a calculator online. I admit that I did not study it extremely with a lot of fidelity. There are limits on how much you can charge, and that's to not place an onerous burden on someone who is doing a public information request. But this would just allow us to get a little bit, recoup a little bit of that time / money from processing.
How often do you get those?
Let's say maybe once every 2 months, and one of that size, not as often. So really the 15 hours or the 36 hours is if someone comes in and requests a number of items that could be a 1,000-page export, but it might only take me 8 hours, that's still a full 8-hour workday.
Sure.
Preparing and sorting, and that we would calculate the cost based on that, which might be several $100s, that we would not be able to even look at getting recouped for because of the current policy. Any other questions? Oh, yes, sir. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Board policy amendment, EIA local.
Yes. So we're requesting an amendment to the board policy EIA local to add in information as it pertains to our academic achievement grading and progress report policy. So we're not recommending any strikeouts, but to add verbiage around our grading process that really identifies the weighted percentages now for our major and minor grades, with our major being 30% of the grade and the minor being 70% of the grades. We're also requesting to add verbiage around the time for grade reporting. We would like 2 grades per week entered by the preceding Sunday in the grade book. We also defined what major and minor grades were, so we want to eliminate excessive participation grades and grades that are not tied to true academic performance of our students. So we are defining our major grades as such as like our major tests, our unit tests, our exams, projects, and then our minor grades are those classroom activities, homework, and then tasks that they do in the class. We also updated the policy to add in that we would like to mandate or require students be given the opportunity to make up a failing grade on a test or an assignment. Any questions about the proposed amendments to the grading policy?
How much should it make up grade? You have to make them retest or something?
You would retest up to 75% of the grades. 75% would be the recommended that they could get on a remake or retest.
It's important to note that we're saying that if the student fails, we are requiring a redo. Because we can get away from grades of being punitive, but grades to demonstrate learning. And if a student says that they failed the test, I don't understand, you have to reteach and then reassess. So we're changing the whole mindset on we're teaching for knowledge, not teaching for grades.
Thank you.
Board President Johnson, Mr. Victor, Mr. Terry. So now the policy amendment for AE local, I spoke about it earlier during the information session. We understand that in Marlin ISD, we have to have board goals for Lone Star governance and for AE local. As reading the current goals that we have in place, they do surround themselves around pre-K to second grade reading for 3rd through 8th grade, and then mathematics for 3rd through 8th grade as it relates to STAR. I left these because they're supposed to be completed by 2021. So I didn't want to eliminate those goals per the meeting that we had on July 23rd. And notice that we do see the percents of 54%, 49%, and 61%. And I can tell you, we are far away even from these percent numbers. But part of our discussion on July 23rd was that's not enough. We have to make sure that 100% of our students are achieving. So we're looking at our new goals. We're going to talk to the notion of that student progress, that STAR progress measure. Is each student getting what they need every single year? So we're saying reading grades 3 through 5, we will have 100% by this year and every year thereafter. We also agreed upon that reading in middle school, grades 6 through 8, will be at 100% of showing that growth from this year and beyond. We're also saying that Algebra 1 high school mathematics, we will show that growth from year to year to year, from 100% by this year and beyond. And then we understand that building that well-rounded child and the importance of athletics in our community. All Marlin ISD varsity athletics will compete in postseason and their post-district play during the 2020 and 2021 school year and annually thereafter. So we're going to have to now ensure that our financial resources, they align to meet those 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we're doing a phenomenal job as a board to making sure that we're approving budgets that will definitely attack these goals and help us achieve them. So today for consent, we're going to ask that we can add these to AE local from what was discussed on July 23rd. Any questions on the motion? So awarding bids for the hail damage storm from May 2020, another board policy is CBA legal as it relates to construction. Now, whenever we need to go out and discuss construction, there's a bidding process. And we're asking your permission today to advertise on our website and in the Marlin Democrat for bids for construction to be taken with the $250,000 payment that we received. That's also as part of the consent agenda. So a resolution regarding extracurricular status of the Falls County 4-H organization. We know that we are a large ag community here in Falls County and here in Marlin ISD. So in order for this to be counted for student attendance, we're gonna have to allow our adjunct professors from Prairie View and Texas A&M to be counted as adjunct faculty here in Marlin ISD. They're still paid by Prairie View and Texas A&M, but it definitely is going to allow us to count their attendance as in attendance whenever they might be at a fair, at a livestock show, or doing any other 4-H activity. So our two adjunct faculty members here are Pasquale Swanner, coming from St. Houston State is their undergrad degree, and then Sandra Hartsfield is coming from Prairie View A&M University. And of course, all this is overseen by Texas A&M University in College Station. And this is just allowing a signature has to come from Mr. Johnson saying that we are okay with these faculty being counted so we can count the students' attendance when they're at our fairs and our livestock shows. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
We got the consent agenda.
Sure. And I realize we were already there, excuse me. Mr. President, I move that we approve the items presented to us on the consent agenda. And let me find the page. I was so busy following through. Where am I? Where's my page that says all those? Oh, 2, that's right, it was in front. Thank you. Okay, on the consent agenda, we have the board minutes and B, TEAC certification, financial report, the check registry, the budget amendments, the board policy, several board policies, F, G, H, and then process of awarding bids for the hail damage and the resolution regarding extracurricular activities and employee contracts for some teachers and the revised order of the general election for November the 3rd and a salary schedule. I move that we approve the consent agenda as been presented to us all night.
Second.
I'll second if I don't have to repeat it.
Approved and second. Any other discussion? If not, we're ready to vote. All in favor, raise your hand. Motion passed, 3-0. Anything else? Not. Your turn.